fourth task for the Commission is to protect the interests of both the voter and the candidate. As a moderator, we may define the democratic election simply as a contest among candidates whose outcome is decided by the votes of the people. Clearly, this means that there can be no election without voters or candidates. This close relationship between voters and candidates means that the Electoral Commission has a responsibility to be equally fair to voters and candidates, whether they are sponsored by political parties or not. In terms of fairness to voters, the Electoral Commission has three key responsibilities. One, to facilitate and not to obstruct the right to register as a voter by certain requirements that are difficult for the ordinary person to satisfy. Two, once so registered, to facilitate and not to obstruct the realization of the right to vote. And three, the voter's ballot must be counted as cast. Fairness to candidates is achieved by laying out a transparent electoral framework whose outcomes are verifiable, by involving the representatives of the candidates in the key electoral activities, and by an accurate count of the votes obtained by the candidate. As a corollary to the Commission's responsibility to be fair to them, voters and candidates are also expected to exhibit good electoral behavior. At minimum, each voter should cast only one vote at an election and must allow other voters freely to do the same. And every candidate has an obligation to do clean campaigning. The first task for the Commission is to build partnerships with relevant stakeholders. As I said earlier on, it cannot consolidate electoral democracy all by itself. So what I have said so far may be regarded as the internal environment of the Electoral Commission. So, moderator, I wish now to turn to the contributions that other institutions and organizations could make towards institutionalizing electoral democracy. It has rightly been said that no matter how well an electoral commission does its work, unless the external environment is right, conducting free and fair elections might be like dipping a piece of white cloth in murky water and hoping that it would not be stained. So, moderator, I'd like to begin with the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, which for me represents the most durable partnership so far built. The Inter-Party Advisory Committee, or IPAC for short, is not a statutory body. It was set up in 1994 by the Electoral Commission to, so that it could have regular interactions with the political parties. The decisions are not supposed to be binding, but in practice, every time we have reached decisions, if they are practicable, cost-effective, and in accordance with law, they have been adopted. As a result, several changes to the electoral system have been made on the basis of discussions at the IPAC. The Commission has tried to build partnerships with other relevant stakeholders, like the police, civil society organizations, and the judiciary, and the media. And even though I have only a few minutes, I would like to speak to the partnership with the media. In my view, of all the partnership that the Electoral Commission has tried to build in support of electoral democracy, that with the media has been the most disappointing. In spite of the efforts of the Media Commission and the Ghana Journalists Association, with a few exceptions, the quality of electoral reporting and political discourse generally remains poor indeed. Perhaps this is not surprising in a landscape littered with partisan political and media establishments. But what this means is that genuine media has not taken deep roots in Ghana. Thus, by and large, the media has so far missed the opportunity to be a public educator and a guardian of democracy. And I dare say that this undesirable state of affairs is likely to be accentuated in the social media. Well, I'm happy that I have only 3 minutes, because as a past member of the Electoral Commission, I feel very reluctant to do an appraisal of his performance over the years by the other people. Yes. But let me say that I hope I have not created the impression that everything is okay with our electoral environment. There are several aspects of our electoral environment and practice that require serious attention. Let me indicate some of them in summary fashion. The playing field for our political parties is far from level, due mainly to two factors: the long-standing abuse of incumbency and the lack of some form of public funding for political parties. Election campaigns have not been clean. They have not been devoid of insults, character assassination, intimidation, and violence. For a long time now, efforts to make it possible for Ghanaians abroad to vote in our elections have not materialized. Contrary to law, political party sponsorship of candidates at the district level elections is an open secret. A way to address this might be to open the election to political party competition on a proportional representation basis. We must also take note of some factors that could affect the temperature of our elections. I think ways must be found to restrict the role of money in elections. It is now common knowledge all over the world that unbridled use of money in elections makes it possible for money bags, irrespective of the sources of their money, to hijack the electoral process to the detriment of genuine electoral competition. Again, it is becoming the norm for our politicians to make many promises in their election campaigns. As we know, promises can easily become millstones around a politician's neck. Finally, the rise of vigilantism in the political landscape is not a healthy development for the conduct of free and fair elections, nor for the politicians themselves. Maintaining peace and order and protecting citizens is the work of the police. Now, the coordinator, let me conclude by saying that there is much more to democratic governance than electoral democracy. The fact that the Electoral Commission has been able to deliver democratic elections over a considerable period of time is not to be taken to mean that democratic governance has arrived. However, there can be no doubt at all that a democratic election is critical to democratic governance because it is the only legitimate door to democratic leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much.